going to keep you guys for about 30-ish minutes. I'm going to kind of go through the top three things and then I'm going to open it up for questions. So prepare yourselves. And please, while you're at it, think about questions that you have, because I definitely want to be there to guide you, help you, give you tools that you can take today and really apply those to your day in and day out moving forward. All right, so let's dive into it. So the three biggest mistakes that women make as they're trying to build muscle and lose body fat. This is the most common thing that I get asked is, how do I build muscle and how do I lose body fat at the same time? And it sounds wonderful. It sounds like the perfect thing to do. You want to build the muscle that you can physically see, and you want to lose the body fat that you feel is covering up the muscle. However, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in that process. And when you're building muscle and losing fat at the same time, you have to be very precise with how you approach this. And so the number one thing that I see is really training. It's not necessarily nutrition, it's your training. And the first one is your training program. So with your training program, there's so many programs out there that say like, hey, this is a strength training program. This is a strength program. You'll build muscle here, lean out and build muscle, lean out and build muscle. They all promise you that. And what they don't talk about is the fact that they went through a very different process to get where they are today. So all of those, the women and men that you see out there that just are super shredded or have a ton of muscle, they are not doing those 20-minute HIIT workouts that they're sharing on their Instagram. Yes, they do them now because it's maintaining and it's keeping their body in that place. But what they did to get to where they are today is not 20-minute HIIT workouts. So what it comes down to with your training is that you need to really figure out what you want out of your training, and then what you can do right now in your season of life. So for example, you might want to build muscle right now, but you're raising little kids, or you have a really demanding full-time job and you're building a relationship and you're getting ready to move, or things are just not stable in your life right now and you're have so many unknowns. All you can do right now is get in a 20 to 30-minute workout. If that is your life, then building a lot of muscle right now is not going to be, you're not going to be in the environment to do that. Yes, you can build muscle, but it's not going to be that substantial change that you might want. And so it's getting really, really clear on one, what do you want? And two, what can you actually do right now? So figuring those two things out, that's how you create your training program. So it's, let's go with the training. What do you want? Do you want to build muscle? Do you want to just lean out from where you're at right now? Do you want to do a little bit of both? Do you need 20-minute workouts? Can you spend an hour in the gym? What is it that you can do? And then on top of that, if you are an endurance athlete, how much endurance are you doing right now, and what are you willing to sacrifice, or what are you willing to drop in order to get what you want? Because endurance and strength training, there's a dichotomy there. They are not, you can, like, you will lose muscle if you do too much endurance, and you will lose endurance if you do too much strength training. And so you have to find that happy middle. But if you're in a really big endurance, I guess, a time of your life where you're doing a lot of endurance and you're training for something, then trying to put on a lot of muscle right now is not going to work for you, because you need to be training that endurance. And vice versa, if you're in a time in your life right now where you really want to build strength, you need to limit the amount of endurance that you do, or bring it down to a different level in order to sustain the muscle that you're trying to build. So figuring out where you're at there. And I want you guys, if you can, or after this, I would love for you to write these things down. So the first thing that you need to write down is, what do I want with my training? And then the second thing is, what can I do with my training? So that comes down to, I recommend doing a 5-minute brain dump of what's going on in my life right now. Where am I in my life right now? And what am I prioritizing? What does my calendar look like? what are the things that are on my calendar? Am I running around to meetings? Do I have sports that I'm attending? Do I have my career that I'm chasing? Whatever it might be, what is taking up the majority of your time? Because when it does come to building muscle, that needs to be a priority in your life. And if you want to build muscle and lose body fat at the same time, that needs to be in your top two priorities. It needs to be something that you are hyper focused on to achieve. I'm not saying you have to be like that the rest of your life, but for a period of time to do those things, you have to focus on those things. So once you have what you want and you have what you are capable of doing, then you need to look at, well, what kind of training do I need to do to get there? And so if it is to just sustain what you are currently doing, then HIIT workouts are fine. CrossFit workouts are fine. Those 20-30 minute workouts, that like just looking online and seeing the people that you like to follow, and if they post a workout, those workouts are going to sustain your fitness 100%. They will sustain your fitness. They might even help you get a little more fit. However, they're not going to help you build that muscle mass that you're looking for. If you want muscle mass, you need to do a strength specific program. And then when you look at strength specific programs, you want to look at, am I trying to build power and just like raw strength? Or am I trying to do something that's called hypertrophy training, which is building that muscle mass, but not necessarily building the strength? And for most people, especially if you're in the endurance space, you want a little bit of strength and you want a little bit of the hypertrophy, because you want to be able to have strong bones, but you also want to look the part. And that's where I fit into with my training. I love being strong, but I also want to have the muscle. The muscle is important to me. Maybe it's vain, but I like when I walk down the street and people are like, girl, you got nice biceps. I like that. That makes me feel good. And so I want to have that hypertrophy training with my strength training. And so it comes down to really like finding the specific type of training that you want, because there are so many, like I said, so many different kinds out there on the interwebs. So to build the muscle, to actually like have the muscle mass and be able to physically see that, you need to go through a strength and hypertrophy cycle. And there are a lot of programs out there that do offer that. And you can go ahead, if you're not really involved in any endurance right now, or if strength is your main focus, doing one of those programs would be really good for you. Just following the program through. It's not exciting, I will tell you that. It's not like your CrossFit functional fitness where you're doing something different every day. It is strictly, you're going to be deadlifting, you're going to be back squatting, you're going to be doing very basic movements a lot, and you're going to get heavier and heavier. And so that is what the strength training component is. If you want to add in endurance, then that comes down to really working with somebody that knows what they're doing. There's a lot of endurance and strength programs out there that tell you to do air squats and push-ups, and that's going to build muscle. And it's just not. It really, I hate to say it, but those things are not going to get you where you want to go. Yes, you might build some muscle endurance where going out on the trails or running isn't going to hurt as much or burn as much because you have more of that muscle endurance, but you're not going to build the actual mass that you're looking for. So that is the number one, is really dialing in what that training program needs to look like for you and what you want out of that training program. And once you have that, then we move on to step two, or the next mistake, which is the intensity that you bring to that specific program. So the intensity, this is like the biggest thing that I see with people in the CrossFit classes that I go to, just seeing on the internet. I see it anywhere I go. The intensity that you are bringing to your workout is usually not as intense as you think it is. I used to be that person in the gym that would like stare. I'm a very big starer, which I'm working on. I used to stare at these people that would just grunt and make ridiculous noises in the gym. It was like, you do not have to do that. I promise you, you can lift the weight without doing that. But as I've gotten more and more mature within my training and really understood, you do that sometimes. I even do that sometimes, and it's not out of like I'm attempting to grunt or attempting to make noise. It's just it is so freaking hard, and I'm really trying to push through that movement so I can complete it. And so when I say intensity, you really need to challenge yourself, and this is where I challenge you guys to either find a friend or video yourself. It's very uncomfortable at first, videoing yourself in the gym, but it will give you so much feedback. So be that person that just props up your phone and record yourself while you're working out, because you can see how you're moving. You can see, does that really look as hard as it felt? Because most of the time, you have way more in the tank. And I learned that through working with coaches, of sending them my videos and them responding back like, you could have done 4 more reps. I'm like, no, I physically could not have done 4 more reps. Did you see me? And then I look at the video and I'm like, yeah, maybe I could have. Because our minds are going to tell us that we're done far before our bodies are physically done. And so really bringing the intensity to that training is extremely, extremely important. It's, if you go in and you do a strength program with hypertrophy, but you're only giving yourself, let's say, a 6 out of 10, you're not going to see the results that you want, because you're not pushing hard enough and you're not giving your muscles the stimulus it needs to actually build and break down. And so what I recommend for everyone is the next couple of days, record yourself while you're lifting and really try to push it. Like if you are, depending on what your strength training looks like, if you're working on percentages or RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion, giving, and the scale is usually on a 1 to a 10. And hypertrophy work is usually done between a 7 to a 9. So you're pushing yourself either close to failure or like 1 to 2 reps to failure. It, and when I say failure, I am meaning that, like, if you're doing a pull up and you pull on the bar, you physically cannot get your body up there. Or if you are doing a bicep curl and you're trying to curl it, you physically cannot curl the bar all the way up because you are just so fatigued. Or you fail a squat. That's like, that is the number one thing when it comes to intensity, is learn how to fail. Really learn how to fail, because once you learn how to fail, once you do it, it's not as scary when it happens, because it's going to happen, and it needs to happen in order for you to get to the point that you're pushing your body to the stimulus it needs. So like I said, the next week, bring the intensity, record yourself, and really look and see, are you pushing yourself as hard as you think you are? Because if you're not, you need to start doing that in order to get muscle. It needs to hurt. It not hurt in a like pain, like, oh, I broke something hurt, but it needs to hurt like your legs are shaking, your body is shaking. You don't know if you're going to make that rep, but you do it anyways, kind of hurt. And when you get to that point where you're huffing and puffing and it's challenging and things are like you're seeing stars to a certain extent, that's when you know that you are really bringing yourself to that level. And I'm not saying that every workout needs to be like that, but you need to get yourself to a point where you know your boundaries. And you do need to feel like it, that burn that you feel when you're doing the movements and you're like, I don't know how much longer I can sustain this burn. I need to stop. I need to stop. That's when you go 1 or 2 more reps, because you can keep going. So that's what I challenge you to do the next couple of days, is really push yourself in your training. Make it count. The one thing I do want to say is that form is important. So I'm saying push yourself, make it hurt, do all these things, but form is extremely important as well. Do not put yourself in a situation where you have really bad form and you're pushing yourself. So really, if you lose form, let's say your knees cave in really bad, or you are utilizing your back with your deadlift instead of using your hamstrings, your glutes, then that's when you need to check yourself and go back and start working on that form, and maybe find a different movement that's going to hit those muscle groups before you can go heavier in the deadlift or heavier in the squat. So form is important, very important, because we don't want you to hurt yourself. Now, the last one, and this is like my favorite one, because of course nutrition is probably the number one thing I love to talk about, the food. And if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen that I polled people on what the biggest challenge is with gaining muscle and losing body fat, and it comes down to food. And so the biggest thing when it comes to food is making sure that you're eating enough. We have this mindset, if we need to eat less, we need to eat less. If we want to lose weight, we need to eat less. It is not about eating less. It is about eating what works best for your body and what's going to fuel your muscle journey of your strength training and your intensity that you're bringing to your strength training. If you are bringing the intensity and you are doing a strength training program or a type of program that's going to help you build muscle 3 to 4 days a week, you need to be eating a decent amount of food. And so the last piece, the biggest mistake, is under eating. It's cutting your calories because you think that if you cut calories and you lift weights, that you will magically lean out and build muscle. But muscle needs food to grow. You need to be in a surplus, so that doesn't work. The other thing that I see, which I posted about today on Instagram, is just that you might be in a state where you're eating in a surplus now, but maybe you were under eating for a really long time, or maybe you're just not consistent with it. Maybe you eat a little, maybe you eat in a surplus, or you feel like you overeat 1 or 2 days of the week, but then you undereat the rest of the days. You're not consistent enough with your body, nor are you averaging a right amount of calories consumed to actually support that muscle growth. So the number one thing that you can do is just figure out what your maintenance calories are and figure out where you are now. Once you know where you're at, where you know your base level, where you're at now, and you know where your maintenance is, then you want to start working up to that maintenance. And yes, you're going to be eating more food. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually going to help jumpstart your metabolism and get you to a place where you're feeding your muscles so they can grow. You're feeding your body so it can do what it needs to do. And you're utilizing those calories way more efficiently. And if you've been at maintenance for a while, let's say you've been at maintenance for 2, 3, 4 months, and you are not seeing any change, that's where you can move yourself into a slight deficit and really get precise on how much protein that you're eating, and then the effort that you're putting in at the gym. Because either tweaking your nutrition or tweaking your strength and your effort that you're going in at the gym, one of those things will move the needle, and it will help you build the muscle while also losing the weight. But you have to figure out which one of those things you need to adjust. And so that's where nutrition is really important, to have that data so that you can see, okay, I'm doing everything right. I am eating enough. I am supporting my body. I'm at the place where I need to be. So then it must be my training. Or if you're really pushing it in your training and you're not tracking your nutrition, it very well could be your nutrition. So I'm going to kind of summarize these 3 really quick, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. You're welcome to either unmute yourself and ask a question, or just put it in the chat and ask the question. I want to help you, so it can be very specific to you as well. So whatever questions you do have. But let me get through these 3 really quick. The first one was the type of program that you're doing. So you want to make sure that you know what you want, the season of life that you're in, and then the specific type of training that's going to get you what you want. So those are the 3 for the first one. Then the second one is the intensity. You need to bring the intensity with good form. So you want to make sure that you're videoing yourself. Start videoing yourself now. And if you have a friend, or you are working with a coach, or you know someone that could watch these videos and kind of help guide you and be like, oh, okay, you could push it 1 or 2 more reps. Or maybe if you do this, just something, some type of feedback. You need feedback on what you're doing to ensure that you're actually bringing the correct stimulus. And then let me, I guess, add, practice failing. Really do something, whether it be like, if failing scares you, do something simple like a bicep curl. Just keep doing it until you literally can't move that dumbbell any higher. Just practice failing on certain things so you know what that feels like in your body and you know what your body's doing when it happens. And then the last one, the nutrition. Bottom line, figure out where you are right now. That is bottom line. You need to know what you're eating currently. Then you want to find your maintenance. Then you either want to work up to your maintenance, or if you're at maintenance, you want to start working in a slight deficit. And with slight, I'm talking about 100 to 300 calories max right now. Just play with that and see how it goes. So those are the 3 biggest mistakes. Tried to get through them fairly quickly. And I hope that I gave you guys some tools and some actual things that you can go and take action and do in the next couple of days. So do we have any questions? All right, Sharon just messaged and said, can we watch this again later? And yes, absolutely. Yes, you can listen. I'm recording this and I'm going to go through it and send it out to anybody that's registered, and then also kind of send a recap of everything. So yes, you can watch it later.
Hey.
Hi.
So I do have a question about, like you were talking about the HIIT workouts and things like that.
Yes.
So if you're doing the strength training,
yes,
just do that, or should you be adding in that once or twice a week just to kind of keep up some cardio fitness good, or really just sticking to the weight training way to go?
that is an awesome question. And the strength training should be your number one. So strength training should be first and foremost, I need to do this. If you want to add in some HIIT just to make yourself, like, just to feel good and like get your heart rate up, you can definitely do that. The one thing that I will recommend is do not go into like CrossFit workouts and try to like redline yourself or really push yourself to a point where you're just feeling like garbage towards the end of the workout, because you're expending far too much energy and you're not going to be able to recover enough to bring that energy the following day. Because that's what strength training really is that you expend far more energy than you think moving heavier weight, and the next day you're like, oh, I'm fine, or like you're a little sore, but you're like, oh, I could go work out. But that workout is actually taking away energy from what you could use the following day to really bring it to your fullest extent. And so that's where, yes, you can go do those workouts, but just dial it back a little bit. So you like, if it says like, if it's like a 5-round type thing, or if it's like a work for 20 minutes, just move at your own pace. Like, do not try to win or go, or like just be number one. Like, just really go at your pace, stop and breathe if you need to, like do a lap around and then start doing it again. So really it's more just fluid movement than it is high intensity movement.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a great question. All right. Do you have any other questions, Courtney? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. I've really been doing well the past, I think I'm on like 5-6 weeks of doing now I've got the hybrid
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
training and the working through nutrition. I've been doing well with the protein, so it's kind of just like refining things and just time. But I am
Yes.
like trying to figure out, and this was probably the case with other people too, the like eating like right at maintenance versus that deficit, because like kind of trying to find that sweet spot with things. I think that's kind of my like thing that I'm personally trying to figure out, like what is that sweet spot with food.
Yes. And that takes, so I'm glad that you brought that up. That takes time to work through, to figure out where that sweet spot is. It's going to come down to these are things that you should be doing every week, of like assessing, like, how do I feel during my training workouts? Do I feel fed? Do I feel strong? Do I feel like I could, like, am I making progress in my lifts, or am I just kind of staying stagnant? Because if you're feeling strong and you're just continuing to go, you can move. If you're not seeing any physical change with your body, you can move your calories down slightly, but you want to continue to assess of, how am I feeling? How am I performing? Because performing is number one when it comes to building that muscle. If performance starts going, then that means that you're not providing the stimulus you need to actually get the muscle that you want. And so it's always focused on how am I feeling? How am I performing? And if you're feeling good and you're performing well, then you can move around your calories a bit to work in a slighter deficit and just keeping that protein high.